Chosen one, the power God trained you to carry is dangerous, but not because it will make you more powerful than everyone around you. It is dangerous because once it wakes up inside you, fear can no longer negotiate your decisions. Rejection can no longer rewrite your identity. Confusion can no longer keep you motionless. And here is what almost nobody tells you. God can prepare a promise in a moment, but He prepares the person through seasons. That is why some prayers seemed delayed. That is why certain doors stayed closed. You were learning discernment before influence, boundaries before abundance, and obedience before visibility. Think about what would have happened if everything arrived when you first asked for it. You might have used success to prove your worth. You might have used money to rescue people who refused to change. You might have used influence to chase approval from the same voices that once made you doubt yourself. The gift was not always the danger. The OLD patterns inside you were. This is why training often feels slower than blessing. A blessing can appear quickly. Capacity cannot. Capacity is built when nobody is clapping. It is built when you tell the truth, while fear is still present. When you walk away from what drains you, and when you stop forcing doors just because silence makes you uncomfortable. Joseph carried a gift long before he carried responsibility. He could dream before he could govern. He could see before he knew how to steward pressure. The pit did not erase the gift. The prison did not cancel the calling. But each hidden season forced something deeper to mature before greater responsibility entered his hands. That pattern matters for you. You may have thought God was making you wait because you were forgotten. But what if the waiting was exposing what could not come with you? The need to explain yourself. The panic that made you move too early. The hunger to be chosen by people who were never assigned to validate you. There is a kind of strength that looks unimpressive from the outside. You stop reacting. You stop announcing every move. You stop turning every closed door into a crisis. You become quieter, clearer, and harder to manipulate. And that kind of power is dangerous to every old pattern that depended on your emotional instability. So, do not measure your training only by what you survived. Measure it by what no longer controls you. The same insult does not hook you. The same delay does not break you. The same silence does not make you abandon your direction. Something in you has changed, even if your circumstances have not caught up yet. But there is still one final threshold many chosen ones never recognize. You can finish a spiritual lesson and still carry a mind and body trained for survival. You can know what to do and still feel foggy when it is time to move. You can feel the calling and still freeze at the point of action. We will come back to that, because it explains why some people are spiritually sincere, emotionally wiser, and still unable to access the clarity they know is somewhere inside them. For now, understand this. Your training was not proof that the power was small. It was proof that the person carrying it had to become large enough to hold it well. Chosen one, there is a difference between wanting more and being able to carry more. Most people never learn that difference. They ask for the door, the opportunity, the relationship, and the influence. But few ask, what kind of person must exist on the other side of that prayer? This is where the capacity gap begins. It is the distance between what you desire and what you can steward without losing yourself. You may be gifted enough to enter a room, but not grounded enough to remain yourself inside it. You may be called to lead, but still collapse when someone disapproves of you. That gap is not punishment. It is information. It shows you where desire moved faster than formation. Once you see the gap, you stop begging life to hurry and start noticing what your current season is actually building inside you. Maybe you have already seen signs of it. You no longer chase every person who pulls away. You do not explain every decision. You can sit with silence longer than before. You can feel disappointment without turning it into a verdict about your future. Imagine an opportunity arriving 2 years ago. The former version of you might have told everyone before anything was secure. You might have asked 5 people what they thought. You might have overpromised because you feared the door would close. Then pressure would rise, and approval would start making decisions for you. Now imagine the same opportunity arriving today. You pause, you pray, you gather facts, you let excitement settle before you speak. You do not confuse urgency with guidance, and you do not confuse enthusiasm from other people with confirmation. The opportunity is the same, but the person receiving it is different. That is what training changes. God does not only work on what is coming toward you, He works on what it will be coming into. A bigger assignment, placed inside unstable patterns, does not create freedom. It creates a larger stage for the same struggle. This is why some doors have to meet a different version of you. Not a perfect version, not a fearless version, a version with enough inner space to choose instead of react, enough discernment to wait, and enough self-respect to walk away when something impressive violates peace. And there is another layer that matters deeply. Sometimes the spirit becomes willing before the mind becomes clear. Sometimes character matures while attention remains scattered. Sometimes you learn the emotional lesson, but still wake up foggy, slow, and disconnected from the sharpness you remember. Researchers have explored how different parts of the brain cooperate during attention, creativity, and complex thinking. But it raises a question worth holding for people who have done years of inner work and still feel mentally depleted. What if the final thing keeping you from using what God trained into you is not another spiritual lesson, but the condition of the receiver through which you recognize, decide, and act? Do not answer that yet. We will return to it after one more truth becomes clear. Before you can understand why clarity disappears when you need it most, you need to understand why power itself had to wait. The delay was not only about timing, it was about stewardship. And the next layer will show you what becomes dangerous when greater power lands inside an identity that still needs everyone else to say who it is. Chosen one, power becomes dangerous when it arrives before identity is stable. Not because power is evil, the danger is simpler. Greater responsibility amplifies whatever already has authority inside you. If approval controls you, influence gives approval a bigger stage. If fear controls you, money gives fear more options. If insecurity controls you, visibility gives insecurity more mirrors. Power does not automatically heal the wound. Sometimes it gives the wound more room to speak. This is why God had to train you before certain doors opened. You needed to learn the difference between being seen and being secure. You needed to learn that attention is not love. You needed to learn that access is not alignment, and that not every opportunity deserves your yes. This is the holy danger. It is the moment your new capacity becomes stronger than the patterns that once controlled you. Think about influence without identity. A person can become visible and still spend every day checking whether everyone approves. The platform grows, but the inner prison grows with it. Think about money without emotional regulation. More resources can create freedom, but they can also magnify impulsiveness. And think about discernment without humility. You can become so convinced that every strong feeling is guidance, that correction begins to feel like attack. That is not spiritual power. It is certainty without examination, and it can make a gifted person harder to teach when wisdom matters most. So the training had to go deeper. It had to reach the place where you once believed respect from others would finally prove your worth. It had to transform that hunger into something quieter. Their disrespect no longer gets to determine who you are. That shift changes everything. You stop using success as evidence of worth. You stop using rejection as evidence of failure. You stop needing every door to open, because a closed door can protect your peace as much as an open door can expand your reach. And this needs to be clear. Not every painful event was sent by God. Abuse is not sacred training. Injustice is not automatically divine instruction. Illness and loss should not be romanticized. But whatever the origin of what you survived, wisdom can still be taken from it without calling the harm holy. You can learn boundaries from betrayal without blessing betrayal. You can learn discernment from manipulation without excusing manipulation. You can become stronger after suffering without pretending suffering was good. Now, look at what changed in you. The old version wanted power so people would finally see your value. The trained version wants capacity to serve without abandoning itself. The old version wanted the room. The trained version wants the wisdom to know what to do once the room becomes real. That is why this power is dangerous. It is dangerous to panic, dangerous to people-pleasing, dangerous to the belief that loneliness should lower your standards, dangerous to the habit of chasing what keeps withdrawing from you. Most of all, dangerous to the identity that needed external permission to move. But one question remains. What happens when this identity work is real, yet your mind still feels slow when action is required? What happens when the spirit says move, but the receiver feels foggy? That is where the next threshold begins. Chosen one, there is a version of you that could not cross into what you asked for. Not because that version was worthless. It was because too many decisions were still being made by fear. Too much energy was spent proving, chasing, rescuing, and explaining. The door was not the only thing changing. Approval can become a quiet addiction. You know it is there when one disapproving face can erase 10 clear signs that you are moving in the right direction. You know it is there when peace disappears the moment someone questions you. The old version of you needed agreement before action. The trained version can listen, discern, and still choose. Urgency can become another master. You feel pressure, and everything seems like it must happen today. You move too fast, because waiting feels unbearable. Training teaches you that what is truly yours does not require panic to keep it alive. Then there is the rescue identity. You become necessary to everyone because being needed feels safer than being known. You fix problems people never asked you to fix. You carry weight that belongs to grown adults. You call it love, but underneath it is the fear that if you stop rescuing, you may stop mattering. Then comes self-abandonment. You know what you need, but you betray it to keep the room comfortable. You know the answer is no, but you say yes, because disappointing someone else feels harder than disappointing yourself. These patterns once helped you survive uncertainty, but survival habits become expensive when they follow you into expansion. A larger opportunity does not heal them automatically. It gives them more places to operate. That is why the person crossing the threshold matters as much as the threshold itself. Picture one opportunity arriving now. Something meaningful, something you asked for. The old you would tell everyone before it was secure. Then check every reaction and let every opinion change the temperature of your confidence. The trained you does something different. You become still first. You pray. You gather facts. You let excitement settle. You notice whether the opportunity requires you to betray your peace or your values. You do not need fear to disappear. You need enough clarity to move without abandoning yourself. This is liberation in its quietest form. The old identity does not vanish because you fought it harder. It loses power because you stop feeding it with obedience. Every time you pause, instead of panic, the old pattern weakens. Every time you tell the truth, instead of performing, another chain becomes unnecessary. But then comes the confusing part. What happens when you have learned these lessons and cannot access the clarity you know is somewhere inside you? What happens when your spirit feels ready, your values are clearer, and yet your mind feels slow when it is time to decide? That question matters because maturity and mental clarity are not the same thing. You can become wiser and still become exhausted. You can become more grounded and still carry years of scattered attention, poor rest, chronic stress, and habits that make deep focus harder to reach. So the next threshold is not about whether you are worthy. It is about the receiver. It is about the instrument through which you notice, choose, create, and act. And once you understand that difference, a struggle you blamed on your character may finally receive a more useful name. Chosen one. Some struggles look spiritual because they happen near spiritual decisions. You sit down to pray, plan, create, or finally act on something important, and suddenly your mind feels heavy. You read the same sentence again. You walk into a room and forget why you entered. The insight was clear in the morning, then disappears by afternoon. It is easy to turn that experience into an accusation. Maybe I am lazy. Maybe I lack discipline. Maybe God stopped speaking. Maybe I am not as capable as I thought. But those explanations can become cruel when they ignore the condition of the mind and body carrying the responsibility. There is another way to name this: the receiver gap. It is the distance between being inwardly willing and being mentally able to recognize, organize, and act on what matters. Character readiness is not identical to cognitive readiness. Spiritual sincerity does not automatically create rested attention or clear executive function. You can love God and still be tired. You can have strong values and still be overloaded. You can know what matters while your attention has been fragmented by stress, poor sleep, constant alerts, emotional strain, and years of reacting to whatever demanded you first. Notice how specific this can feel. You open the document that matters, and 10 minutes later, you are somewhere else. You know the conversation you need to have, but every possible outcome crowds the mind. You receive a good idea, then lose it before you can give it structure. None of this proves a spiritual failure. It does not prove that you are unintelligent. It does not prove that the calling disappeared. Sometimes the more useful question is not, "What is wrong with me?" The better question is, "What condition is my receiver in when clarity needs somewhere to land?" Think back to childhood for a moment. There may have been a time when curiosity felt easier. You could become absorbed in a question, build something from almost nothing, imagine possibilities without immediately calculating every reason they might fail. Adulthood adds wisdom, but it can also add noise, responsibility, stress, and relentless interruption. Childhood was not perfect, but the mind can feel different under different conditions. Attention can narrow when stress rises. Creativity can become harder to access when mental bandwidth is consumed. The body and brain still matter. Earlier, I asked you to hold one question. What if the final thing keeping you from using what God trained into you is not another spiritual lesson, but the condition of the receiver through which you recognize, decide, and act? We are ready to return to that question now. There is research into how different regions of the brain specialize, communicate, and coordinate during complex thought. There are also tools that claim to support states of mental coordination through sound-based methods. Claims about any specific product should be judged on their own evidence, not borrowed from famous research that came before it. That distinction matters. Faith should not require you to stop asking good questions. Science should not be used as decoration for a promise it did not prove. If a tool is useful, it should be presented as a tool, not as God, not as destiny, and not as a guarantee. And that brings us to the missing piece. You can complete an emotional lesson while the receiver remains tired. You can understand the door and still struggle to recognize the moment to move through it. The lesson may be complete, while the instrument that carries the lesson into action still needs care. Chosen one. Knowing the lesson is not the same as being able to use it. You can understand your patterns and still hesitate when a real decision arrives. You can know the door is open and still feel too foggy to recognize what matters. Clarity is real, but clarity must become movement. So here is the missing piece. Your training may have strengthened character, boundaries, patience, and discernment, yet daily action still depends on attention, rest, clear thinking, and the condition of the mind carrying those lessons. the lesson can be complete while the receiver is still tired. Knowing the door exists and seeing it clearly are not the same thing. Earlier I told you we would return to research on how the brain coordinates complex thought. One important foundation came from Dr. Roger Sperry, whose split brain research contributed to the Nobel Prize in 1981. His work helped establish that the two hemispheres have specialized functions and communicate as part of an integrated brain. That research does not prove that any commercial audio product works. It is a foundation, not a guarantee. The specific tool I am about to describe makes its own claims, and those claims should be evaluated on their own evidence and your own experience. According to customer accounts provided with the product, a woman from California reported feeling clearer and more present after using it. A man from Texas reported better focus and decision-making. These are testimonials, not promised results. The tool is called the Genius Switch. It is a digital audio sequence designed to be used with headphones for about 8 minutes a day. Its creators describe the method as neural sync technology and say it is intended to support coordinated activity across the brain. It is not a replacement for sleep, medical care, prayer, discipline, or thoughtful decision-making. Its creators position it as broader coordination between the hemispheres rather than a track designed only to create a mood. That is their stated mechanism, and it should still be treated as a product claim, not settled proof. The Genius Switch is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one, who understands that spiritual preparation does not remove the responsibility to care for the mind through which choices are made. If your spirit resonates, you can examine the details without treating the purchase itself as a spiritual test. The official page currently lists the program at $39, reduced from $49. It also includes 4 bonuses: a guided visualization, a grocery guide, a classic manifestation book, and a 5 habits infographic. The page states lifetime access and a money-back guarantee under its terms. The value is not in the number on the page. The real question is whether the tool fits a problem you actually have. If your struggle is mainly lack of sleep, untreated anxiety, medical symptoms, or overwhelming circumstances, an audio sequence should not be used to avoid proper care. But if what you recognize is the receiver gap, the feeling that your inner work has matured while attention and execution still feel scattered, this may be one optional tool to explore. The official page is linked in the description and pinned comment. Read the details. Consider the evidence. Decide without pressure. There is one more reason this matters. A tool can support clarity, but it cannot choose for you. It cannot obey for you. It cannot create boundaries for you or tell the truth on your behalf. God is not hidden inside a purchase, and your calling is not conditional on owning anything. What the tool may support is the instrument. Stewardship still belongs to you. And that returns us to the deeper truth of this message. The final threshold is not becoming fearless. It is becoming steady enough that fear no longer makes the decision. It is moving from reaction to discernment, from proving to serving, from chasing to choosing, and from forcing to stewarding. That is where power becomes safe. Not when you become perfect, when what governs you becomes stronger than what once controlled you. Chosen one, power becomes safe when stewardship becomes stronger than impulse. That is the shift your training was building all along. You were not being prepared to dominate a room. You were being prepared to remain clear when the room became loud, demanding, flattering, or afraid. A tool can support clarity. A tool cannot replace obedience. It cannot create courage for you. It cannot choose your boundaries or decide what kind of person you become when pressure arrives. What God is doing in you is deeper than any resource you could ever purchase. This is where the training starts to reveal its fruit. You react less. Something happens, someone disappoints you, a plan shifts, and the old urge to answer immediately still appears. But now there is space between the trigger and your response. That space is power, not dramatic power, the kind that keeps another person from using your emotions to control your direction. You can feel the emotion without handing it the steering wheel. Then proving begins to die. You no longer need success to punish the people who underestimated you. You no longer imagine your future as a courtroom where everyone who doubted you must admit they were wrong. You want to build because the work matters, not because revenge needs an audience. Chasing becomes choosing. You stop treating every opportunity like the last train leaving the station. You stop running after people who become interested only when you withdraw. Discernment is not passivity. It is recognizing what deserves your energy before your energy is gone. And then comes stewardship. Power is not getting everything you want. Power is receiving more and still knowing when enough is enough. It is receiving attention without becoming addicted to attention. It is receiving resources without letting resources become your identity. Joseph learned this in hidden places. His gift appeared early, but responsibility arrived later. By the time authority came, he had lived through betrayal, uncertainty, service, and waiting. The visible position was not the beginning of his formation. It was where hidden formation became useful. Now picture your own version of that moment. Someone who once triggered you says something sharp. The former you would explain, defend, replay, and lose the rest of the day. The trained, you hears it. You notice what is true. You release what is not. Then you continue with your peace intact. That is dangerous power. It is dangerous to manipulation because you no longer respond on command. It is dangerous to people-pleasing because disappointment no longer equals rejection. It is dangerous to old relationships that required you to stay confused so they could remain comfortable. And for the chosen one who felt something stir when the receiver was mentioned earlier, the resource we discussed is still in the description and pinned comment. You can examine it there if it fits what you actually need. That door remains optional. Your calling does not depend on it. The deeper question is different. How do you know the training worked? The answer is not intensity, it is stability. You will know by the way you hold good news, the way you hear no, the way you carry fear, and the way you stop rescuing people just to feel necessary. Chosen one, readiness does not always announce itself with a dramatic feeling. You still wake up with questions. You still feel pressure. You still have moments when fear speaks first. But something important has changed. Fear no longer gets the final vote. One sign is that you can hold good news privately. You do not need to tell everyone before the seed has roots. You can receive an opportunity, pray over it, gather facts, and let it become real before you invite outside opinions into the room. Another sign is that you can hear no without turning it into never. Rejection still hurts, but it does not become prophecy. A closed door no longer convinces you that your entire future has closed with it. You can grieve what did not happen and still remain available for what may happen next. You also begin to feel fear without obeying it. Readiness is not the absence of fear. If you wait until your body never tightens and your mind never asks difficult questions, you may wait forever. Courage is noticing fear, examining what it says, and choosing from a deeper place. Then the rescue pattern begins to weaken. You stop confusing love with carrying responsibilities that belong to other adults. You can care without controlling. You can help without becoming indispensable. You can let someone face the consequences of their choices without believing their discomfort makes you cruel. Another sign appears in receiving. You can experience something good without immediately searching for disaster. You can let a kind word be kind. You can let progress be progress. You can let peace exist without interrogating it until anxiety returns. These changes may seem small, but they reveal something enormous. The clearest evidence of power is not intensity. It is stability. A stable person can carry more, because every new responsibility does not instantly become an identity crisis. Maybe part of you is thinking, but I still struggle. I still overthink. I still react sometimes. I still have days when I feel like the old version of me. That does not disqualify you. Readiness is not perfection. Formation does not erase humanity. The question is whether the pattern still rules you. Do you recover faster? Do you recognize the trigger sooner? Can you apologize without collapsing into shame? Can you change course without pretending you were never wrong? Those are signs of growth. There is a difference between having a reaction and building a life around it. The trained version of you may still feel fear, but fear no longer controls the calendar. You may still feel rejection, but rejection no longer chooses your standards. You may still feel uncertainty, but uncertainty no longer forces you to abandon your values. This is what it means to carry power safely. You become less impressed by the feeling of power and more committed to stewardship. You stop asking, "How powerful can I become?" You start asking, "How faithfully can I carry what is already in my hands?" And that question prepares the final movement. The closing is not about asking God for more intensity. It is about becoming available for more responsibility without losing the peace, clarity, and identity your training was designed to build. Chosen one, bring it back to one truth. What felt like God withholding power may have been a season of building your capacity to carry more without letting fear, confusion, or the old identity control what came next. You do not need to force that truth. Notice what has already changed. Notice where your no has become cleaner, your yes has become calmer, and your peace no longer depends on everyone understanding you. Take one slow breath. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw release. If it feels comfortable, close your eyes for a moment and imagine a door in front of you. Do not imagine money, applause, status, or some dramatic sign. Just imagine yourself standing before that door differently. The door is not smaller, the responsibility is not lighter, but you are no longer standing there as the person who first entered this training. You have more awareness now, more discernment, and more ability to notice fear without turning fear into instruction. Picture your hand near the door. You do not need to rush. You do not need to prove you are ready by forcing it open. You only need to recognize that the version of you who once panicked at every delay is not the only version available anymore. Now say this quietly inside yourself. I do not need to become fearless. I need to stop giving fear authority. Let that sentence land in the body. Notice your breathing. The goal is not to manufacture a supernatural feeling. The goal is to remember that a feeling can be present without becoming your master. This is why the training mattered. Greater responsibility can amplify what already governs you. If fear governs you, more opportunity gives fear more places to operate. If ego governs you, more attention gives ego a larger mirror. But when discernment, humility, patience, and truth become stronger, power begins to look different. It becomes service. It becomes the ability to carry something valuable without letting it define your worth. It becomes the ability to receive without worshipping what you received. So why did God train you first? Not because you had to earn love, not because suffering made you worthy, not because every delay was secretly divine. The lesson is that increase without formation can magnify the very patterns you are trying to escape. Training helps discernment govern fear, stewardship govern ego, clarity govern chaos. And when that shift happens, power is no longer about controlling life. It is about becoming harder for the wrong things to control. Chosen one, release the belief that waiting always meant abandonment. Release the belief that struggle erased your calling. Release the need to use future success as proof that the people who doubted you were wrong. Say this inside yourself. I am not the person who first entered this training. I can carry more without abandoning myself. I do not need power to prove who I am. I can receive responsibility without surrendering my peace. And finally, let this become the declaration you carry beyond this moment. I am becoming capable of carrying what once would have controlled me. If that is the truth you are choosing to live, write "I can," carry it in the comments. Not as a prediction, write it as a decision to steward what is already in your hands with clarity, courage, and peace. The door may open tomorrow, or later than you hoped. That part is not ours to promise. But when it opens, you do not have to meet it as the old version of you. You can meet it trained, awake, grounded, and ready to carry it well.